Hello and welcome to Creighton Corner. I'm Chelsea Riediger and here with me today is Lucy Hancock. Lucy is the International Student and Scholar Services Coordinator at Creighton University. Lucy, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's great for you to be here. We're so thankful you took time out of your surely busy schedule. We'd like to ask you some questions about your role as an advocate for international students and integrating their cultures in with the Creighton community. First of all, as your role in the Global Engagement Office, what are some of your day-to-day responsibilities?
Sure. So my role is essentially, like you said, advocating for students, but also preparing them for life here in the U.S. And it starts when they are abroad. So preparing them with the right paperwork so that they can get their student visas. And then once they're here, that's when the fun really starts. And that's really just working with them to make them feel like Omaha is a home and really getting them accustomed to life in Nebraska.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like so much fun.
It is.
Obviously, you have a passion for international students and the international cultures in which they bring to Omaha. How did you come to fall in love with this type of work?
Yeah, that's a great question, considering I grew up in a very, very small town in Iowa and was not exposed to any kind of international populations. And so when I studied abroad for the first time, that kind of sparked the fire to travel. And then post-grad, I taught in India for a semester, and that is really what kind of put me on the trajectory to continue working with people from different cultures. And from there, I traveled a lot, I moved around a lot, and finally when I landed back in the US, I just kind of had this insatiable desire to be around people who were really different from me and came from different backgrounds, and to just feel like I'm always learning and kind of always immersing myself in something new. And even though I'm living in Omaha, Nebraska, I feel like every day I figuratively get to travel the globe because I'm working with people from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, interesting. Speaking of culture, like you said, you lived abroad for a period of time. What is it like to fully immerse yourself into a different culture or cultures with different languages, traditions, and customs?
Yeah, I think shocking is the first word, and that's why they call it culture shock, because it turns you upside down. For me, going from my very privileged life and plopped down into an orphanage in very rural India, outside of Bangalore, in a village, and you're hand washing your clothes and you're using bucket showers. It shocks you, but then it teaches you how adaptable we are, how resilient we are, and just how much there is in the world to learn and to grow, and you come out so much stronger and more aware of what other people's experiences are when you return from that.
Yeah, were you nervous to go on your first cultural adventure?
Yeah, I think at first I was so excited, and then once I got into the groove, that's when the nerves kicked in, like, oh my gosh, can I actually do this for this long? And then it subsides, but that's why there's such a spectrum of emotions that you go through anytime you're going somewhere that is completely new to you.
Yeah. Interesting. What are some things you learned about these experiences that have given you some insight as to how to make international students that we have here at Creighton feel more comfortable and welcome?
That we are all very accustomed to what our normal is and familiarity, and that can look many different ways. Nobody's is the same, and that it does take some time, and that's really the only thing that allows you to become okay with a new normal. And so I think just acknowledging that humans are very, very vulnerable, and being open to kind of walking with people through that is really important. And I think that's what I try to bring in my position, is to really come from an empathetic standpoint of, this is going to be hard, especially at first, and there will be really new, weird, bizarre things to you, but that's just a part of the process, and it will get easier and you will adapt, and to kind of be that hope for them is really my job.
Yeah. Well, you do really well at it.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Working with international students, I'm sure you get a lot of feedback about the positive and negative things that these students experience. What is one of the biggest complaints international students have in terms of not feeling welcome? And what are some ways that you suggest students kind of combat that or address those situations?
That's such a great question. What I continuously hear is really, really ingrained in the U.S. culture versus cultures outside, and that is that our sense of community is very different from others, in that a lot of cultures are very familial, even with people outside of their family, and so it's very much just loving and open. People's homes, people come and go. Kids are passed around on buses. And here we are a very individualistic society, right? It's not necessarily that collective type mentality, and so I think that can feel a little off-putting. And we are also so go, go, go and very, very fast-paced, and I think that sometimes we can appear to be too busy to have the time to slow down and truly get to know someone. And so I do hear that. Some of my international students will say, you know, I'd love to get to know and have friendships with these domestic students, but I feel like often they'll be just like, hey, in passing, like we got to get together, but then never follow up. And I think that's something we're just so used to. We do that all the time, right? And with or without the intent of actually following up. And so I think that's something that in order to kind of bridge the gap, as you were saying, like what can we do, is to be mindful of that, and that people can take those things seriously and to heart and personally. And if you are saying something in passing about getting together, you should follow up on it, or to create spaces where people can feel really a part of a community. And often, I mean, food and communal meals is like the best way to bring people together. And I think that's something that would be really easy for students to do as far as an effort.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. We know that you have an ambassadorship program. Can you tell us a bit about that and about some of the events that ambassadors get to do with the international students?
Yeah, that's been a really fun part of my job this past year. We really dove into developing this global ambassador program, which is pairing a current Creighton student, usually domestic, with an incoming international student. And so oftentimes it's a lot of our domestic students are those who have had experiences abroad, whether it be through study abroad or FLIPAs or their second generation, and so they have the understanding and the appreciation for what these students are walking into with the transition that they're going to be going through in college in the US. And so it's pairing them up based upon interests and kind of this survey that we created to match them. And then that's kind of their buddy for the year. And so we created 12 different programs for them to kind of pick and choose to attend 4 or more of. And just to kind of dive into the Creighton and the Omaha community. And as far as my favorite programs that we put on, we did so many great things with holidays and traditions from different cultures that it was really fun to see the domestic students really buy into that and support that, and that was a lot of fun. So, for example, the Lunar New Year, which is held in the spring semester, but it was particularly for our Asian demographic students who celebrate that in February, and we had just a massive potluck where there was like a dumpling making station and just all sorts of ethnic food, and we had like 70 students come, both foreign and domestic, and it was just really neat to see people coming together to celebrate a holiday in a culture that wasn't their own.
Interesting. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Does this ambassadorship program seem to help international students with the adjustment to moving from their home culture to a whole new area of the world?
Yeah, I believe so. And we actually just did our data kind of feedback survey for the end of the year to see, you know, what worked, what didn't, and if students want it to come back next year. And it was glowing results. I would say everyone said that it really helped them feel connected to campus, but also connected to individuals. And I think that's a really important part of any kind of immersion, is having that person, that go-to person that you can reach out to with questions, or, you know, this happened and this is kind of unfamiliar to me. Is this normal? Is this weird? People need a one-on-one connection, and that's what that program did. And then having a one-on-one connection and then a broader community to get together for events, I believe it was impactful for many people.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
With your role in this position in the Global Engagement Office, there are always events going on to bridge the gap that sometimes exists between international and local students. What is one of your other favorite events that has been put on this year, and what events are you looking forward to in the near future?
That's a great question. Another one that I personally liked because, I plan these events, so obviously I have personal stake in them. So one thing about me is that I love hiking, I love camping, and I think when you're working with international and domestic students, you have to find common ground. And I think nature and getting out and being active is something that can really bring people together. And so in the fall, we hosted just a hiking weekend at Hitchcock Nature Center, which is nearby. And we had a great turnout of people who didn't go anywhere for fall break, who got to bond with students and hike in the bluffs and really experience a little bit of terrain here in Nebraska, but to bond over being outdoors and enjoying the beautiful weather and talking about how this is kind of, you know, nature is our common home. It's our shared space no matter where you're from. And so there's an importance to recognizing that, to realizing that leave no trace hiking is really important, which means taking care of nature as we utilize it. And so there are some kind of educational pieces that we try to slip in there, even though they are social events. But I really enjoyed that one. That was a happy memory.
Sounds like a lot of fun, especially in the fall. I bet
Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
it was beautiful.
Are there any events that the community outside of Creighton could attend or be involved in that would help build a wider community in Omaha as a whole?
Yes, there are countless, but for the sake of time, I will talk about an upcoming one that I'm really excited about, and it's the first time ever to be hosted on Creighton's campus. So it's called the Creighton Festival. It's a kind of a similar to the Lunar New Year. It's a spring New Year festival that will be held for and with the Creighton refugee community here in Omaha. There's a very large population, I believe 100 plus families of from the Myanmar area who have resettled here in Omaha. And they have this tradition, this cultural experience every year with a flagpole and a ceremonial dance and then a big communal meal that they do in parks throughout Omaha. And so for the first time ever, we are working with them to co-host this event on Creighton's campus. One, so they have a space to feel celebrated and welcomed and really a part of something bigger, but also to really expose our Creighton student body and staff and faculty and community in general to this beautifully rich refugee culture here in Omaha, and to really get those two things intermixed so that everyone's benefiting and seeing the importance of working together with one another. So as a plug, that will be Saturday, April 27th, starting at 9 a.m. and it will go through 4 because there will be a big soccer match in which anyone is welcome to play in, just kind of the universal fun kind of sport thing going on afterwards.
Interesting. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I hope to be able to go to that.
Cool.
We also know that you used to be the Cortina Community Director, and that you previously worked with all kinds of different organizations within the Omaha community that address social justice issues as well as built up community. After working so closely with these organizations, if students wanted to get involved in the community, where would you suggest that they start?
Oh, that's great. We'll go outside of the Creighton network because there's a million different departments on Creighton's campus, like the SCSJ, reaching out to the Cortina community to get you connected. But to me, I think there's so much good going on in the Omaha area, and there's so many nonprofits, and there's so much need that you really have to reflect upon which area interests me most, and what am I most passionate about, and where do I feel really called to spend my time and energy. And once you figure that out, you can really start narrowing it down. So as I shared, I love the outdoors, I love sustainability, I love hiking, and so for me, it was narrowing it down to, okay, what kind of community gardens in the area can I get connected to and do some service at? And so City Sprouts, the Big Muddy, the Big Garden, there's countless. So once you really figure out what it is that you want to do, it's really just doing the homework, and whatever you're looking for, I can assure you that Omaha's got it, because there's just a lot of, like I said, a lot of good going on.
Interesting. Definitely important to kind of reflect what you want to get out of it. As a social work major, I know how important it is to take some time for yourself every once in a while, especially in a situation where you're constantly caring for others. What are some things you enjoy doing in order to provide some of that self-care?
Yeah, self-care is very important, and for me, going on runs, being outdoors, that is the most healing thing for me after a long day. I also recharge by spending time with my family. My sister is my best friend, and she lives just a block from me. So self-care is just chatting about each other's day, going for a walk, just really simplifying things. You know, we're so busy and we're on our phones and we go from one thing to the next. And so self-care to me is about trying to slow down, even though that's really hard. So in whatever way that may look like. And for me, it's usually nature and one-on-one connection with people.
Interesting. So you've been talking about hiking and camping and simply enjoying the outdoors. What are some experiences you've had with any of these activities that stick out in your mind?
Ooh. This past summer, I did something for the first time that I've never done, which is having an overnight camping trip alone. And that was something I was really nervous to do, and it was really outside my comfort zone. And granted, it was just at Hitchcock Nature Center, which is, you know, just into Iowa. But there was something really liberating about setting up my camp, making a fire, making my food, and then at night, you know, being in a tent and like hearing coyotes and just doing all of that alone. It was really liberating, and so that was a personal win for me. And then to go abroad last summer, hiking in Bavaria in the mountains in between Austria and Germany with one of my best friends is one of the best experiences that I'll always look back on as far as an outdoor memory.
Interesting. Well, congratulations on your personal win.
Thank you.
Finally, Lucy, on your bucket list, is there any culture that you wish to immerse yourself into for an extended period of time? Why did you choose this particular culture, and what are some things you would wish to experience?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, Africa is a massive continent, and there are so many countries and cultures within it that I am very interested in, but especially this year, I've really gotten to know a lot of students from Nigeria, Cameroon, and I currently sponsor a Lutheran Family Service refugee girl who is brought up in Kenya and Ethiopia. And so I've really started to learn about the culture from my interactions with these people who are so important to me. And so it's definitely on my bucket list to narrow it down to which place I would like to go and immerse myself in, because it's just from what I've seen and the interactions I've had with people from these places, the culture is just so beautiful, so communal, very hospitable, and very in tune with nature. And so I'm looking forward to planning that next trip, which I try to do one a year. And so I think Africa in the big scheme is on the list.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect for you with all the nature-oriented cultures. Well, Luce, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for coming out and giving us some information about the culture of international students, as well as how to build a better inclusive community. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much.